It was a special night and all of Earth had gathered to see it. A comet about 8 miles in diameter ripped through the night sky at over 2,000 miles per hour. And if you were lucky enough to be around for it, you knew you were a part of something special. That this would be the last time for at least 7 decades anyone would stand in these shoes and see what you've just seen. 1986 was a year of wonder and disaster. While stargazers stood in awe of Halley's Comet, others were locked away as part of the ramped-up war on drugs. A nuclear reactor would explode in Chernobyl just a few months later, and the Challenger would too. It was a time of the mall boom, and consumerism and nationalism have never been more deeply interconnected than they were right then. So while we and pop culture might continue to look at 80 for its retro quirk, there's no way to speak about the 80s without speaking about the trouble bubbling underneath that neon aesthetic. It's that very trouble that inspired some of the better entries into the 80s slasher one, and motivated the movie we'll be covering today, Chopping Mall. Released in, you guessed it, 1986. It was written under the name Robots and received lukewarm box office reception under the name Killbots, and found its cult status under its most recognizable title, Chopping Mall, later on home video. The movie borrows a lot of elements from science fiction and something that was really common in movies at this time, which is a fear of technology, and how sentient technology could somehow overtake the people in charge of it, which we still see today with stuff like Black Mirror, but this was just like a slightly different flavor of that. And that's not to say it's not an 80s slasher, because it definitely is. While it contains those elements of sci-fi and plays on consumerism and that fear of technology, it still contains the classic slasher elements. Capable final girl? Yep. Cold, unflinching killer? Literal robots, so yep. Gratuitous nudity and gore? Oh, absolutely. So let's dive right into it.
Fever! We got it too! Fever? We got the fever for the flavor of a Pringle. Fever!
The movie begins with a scene of a mall robber being slow speed chased down by a fancy new security bot and eventually tased, before a title card for Securitronics flashes and pulls the rug out from underneath this false open. We pull back to reveal we're actually a part of a presentation being given at Park Plaza Mall explaining their brand new state-of-the-art security system. A pretty blonde introduces the company's CEO, and he introduces Protectors 1 through 3 as the mall's new security job. Damn automation taking hard-working American jobs. We get some more opening exposition and some snarky comments from a couple that are apparently characters in some other movie before the outstandingly 80s score kicks in and we're on our sleazy, futuristic way. Whoa! The opening credits nail the 80s mall aesthetic perfectly, or at least from what I've seen through TV and movies. There's shoplifters, some teens getting hot and heavy, beautiful women in bikinis. Wait, beautiful women in bikinis? Oh yeah, for a minute I forgot how horny 80s movies are. Anyways, we're introduced to Allison and Susie, played by horror legend Barbara Crampton, at their job in a food court pizza diner. They're fat-shaming the customers and breaking stuff while discussing plans for later. Susie is trying to set Allison up with this nerdy guy at this furniture store party thing later, but Allison is reluctant. We cut to a backroom surveillance desk as lightning begins to strike the building outside. The system starts bugging out, but the man in charge of overseeing it is busy being a horny boy. Can't be jerking when you're working, man. He pays with his life as one of the protectors comes to life and stabs him in the throat.
Waiting for you, a double pleasure from double Miss Gum, a double great feeling, making you real.
We're then introduced to Nerdy Ferdy, Jockey Mike, and Everyman Rick, who all work at the furniture store. The movie kicks through some boring plot details in order to bring us all together back at the furniture store, where, in case you needed a reminder of how horny this movie is, the couples basically immediately start drinking and having sex. Anyone who knows slashers knows drugs and sex are a prerequisite for murder, so at least we've gotten past that formality. Meanwhile, it's shift change in the surveillance office, and I guess the killbots hid the first guy's corpse? It's a kind of endearing detail you only heard of coming from movies with really tight budgets. And a tight budget Chopping Mall hat. In behind the scenes footage, director Jim Wynorski described sweeping up the same broken pieces of window glass and laying them back down every time they were needed again. I, for one, think they would have more money in the broken glass budget if they hadn't go so hard into the shit exploding budget. Anyways, the new guy comes in and starts to read a sci-fi novel with some snacks, but instead has his spine severed almost immediately by a killbot. Now time to hide this body. Through all the teenage debauchery, Ferdy meets Allison, whose courtship is both awkward and kinda sweet. Sensing the debauchery, Protector 1 sets out.
Protector 1, going online.
We then get some gratuitous boob shots as Allison and Ferdy settle in with Attack of the Crab Monsters playing on TV. We cut to a janitor mopping up and getting bullied by some other janitors. Aww. They go about their business as the cool janitors before our janitor is confronted by a killbot. He argues with the robot, even calling it a hunk of junk. Well, Protector 1 did not like that. So it's shock time for Cleany Boy. Rest in peace.
Wow. All this work's making me really hungry.
McDonald's introduces Super Summer Size.
Meanwhile, post-coitus, Leslie wants a pack of cigarettes and convinces Mike to get her some with some booze. He heads out to a cigarette vending machine and runs into another killbot. He tries to show it his badge, which is how they're programmed to know an employee from an intruder, but to no avail. The killbot kills him with a throat pinch, which we later find out is a throat slit when Leslie finds his body. Just then, a killbot somehow opens this door and sends Leslie scrambling. And that's when we get lasers. That's right, lasers. However, we can tell by the shots to her back and butt that these lasers really just singe your skin and there's no real... Oh shit, did her head blow up? How'd that happen? This happens in full view of the others, who look on horrified as the killbot utters its catchphrase.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Eventually, another killbot arrives and breaks into the store, flushing them out as shit blows up behind them. See, big explosion budget. They escape into a back room just as the mall's fortress-like security system closes them in, trapping them until the morning. They decide if they're gonna be trapped, they're gonna fight back. The boys hit a sporting goods store and arm themselves with a bunch of guns, while the girls make their way through the vents and arm themselves with, you guessed it, stuff to make explosions with. Yeah, baby! Speaking of explosions, the boys' first encounter with a killbot after strapping up didn't go as planned, and eventually they had to resort to shooting a well-placed propane tank to destroy it. Explosion. The girls are having some trouble too, as the fires they set to try and deter the killbots also aren't working, as one clips Susie and sets her ablaze by shooting the can of gasoline she was holding. Her friends look on in horror as she burns to death. The guys try shooting it, but once again it's no use. But no worries, they've concocted a Scooby-Doo type plan to trap it in the elevator and blow it the fuck up, which works. They set out to finish the robot bastards off before Mike is caught off guard and thrown off the 3rd level down to the floor in an impressive stunt fall. They're cornered in a store from before, and they begin to become more exasperated and meta.
I guess I'm just not used to being chased around a mall in the middle of the night by killer robots.
After a while, they come up with a plan to use mannequins as a decoy and set mirrors behind the mannequins so that their lasers bounce back and kill the killbots. It works almost immediately, and we see another killbot go down in an electrified mess. But not before Rick sacrifices himself by running into it at like 5 miles per hour, when it was already dying. While attempting to escape the last killbot, Freddy is hit with a canister and knocked to the ground, busting open his head and appearing to kill him. We then get a classic slasher sequence of the killbot chasing the final girl, including a scene with a bunch of creepy crawly tarantulas, before Allison devises a plan to kill the other one that uses a well-organized... I'm just kidding, it's an explosion. With the final killbot dead, Freddy pops back up to congratulate Allison. I love that he just checked out of this one. He was like, no, you got it. The two embrace as the credits roll. Wait, what? A post-credit scene? Is this an Avengers movie? What the fuck?
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Now you could win a year's worth of free travel on United Airlines, plus $25,000. Look for the...
1986 was a year of wonder and a year of disaster. The fear of technology and how it continued to separate us not only from each other, but from the core of who we are, is a fear that's still relevant to many 4 decades later. Chopping Mall plays on this fear while simultaneously condemning unmitigated consumerism, all the while making tongue-in-cheek jokes about how the genre they're participating in makes use of that very consumerism. It's an 80s slasher through and through, complete with countless boobs, gory kills, and Barbara Crampton. While it's commonly regarded as a classic in the horror community, this is another movie that was thrown aside in favor of Jason and Freddy, and its somewhat confusing marketing, and because of that, it's a perfect fit for this series.
City News, Mr. Keebler. Can you tell us what your new sandwich cookies look like?
Anyways, thanks for watching. I've got Melancholia and Terrifier coming soon. Follow me on all the socials, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Google+, all the big ones. I'm too tired to do the whole thing. So until next time, stay safe.